Welcome to Mendezville Live, where it's something to talk about. Here is Rudy Mendez. What's going on, Mendezville? What's going on, Mendezville Live? Today, we're going to talk a little bit about politics. Politics and some information that all the voters need to know. Lots of voters need to understand this information we're going to present to you today. Some do's and don'ts, some procedures, situation that most of us go through. And for elected officials, we're gonna voice some concerns, a major situation that's going on in the area, and voters, we need to know this information. And of course, voters can vote for whoever they want. You know, it's up to you guys. I mean, you know, the information when I talk about politics here on Mendezville Live is as objective as possible. It's more to inform the public, inform the voters, to make sure that, just make that informed vote. Just make an informed vote. And if that's what the people want, that's what the people want. But today we're advocating for voters, for residents in the area to have this information. And with that being said, I'm going to bring in my guest. She's currently a program manager at Restore Education, and she helps the community fight property taxes. And that's what we're going to talk about, how that affects us in the state of Texas. Let's welcome Ann Englert. Ann Englert, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Rudy. Thanks for having me.
Ann Englert, you have always been one of my mentors since my UTSA days. I always appreciated the feedback. So thank you for coming on the show and helping me help the residents of the Valley get informed of property taxes, so we won't feel as intimidated. You know, we'll go through the process of, I hope you guide us in the process of property taxes, and I'm still kind of wet behind the ears. I'll be asking you questions that most voters and most residents have, and then we'll talk about what the situation is in Austin and what are our elected officials, how we trust them, how they're helping us, how they're not helping us. I know you have some inside scoops on that. But for the viewers, this is Ann Englert. We go way back at UTSA. She was my fraternity advisor. She always helped me when I had questions. I'd go to her office. She guided me. She's one of the people at UTSA that guided me to make it through that chaos as a youngster. So I really appreciate her. Thank you so much, Ann.
Thank you. For you and your fraternity, you gave me all my gray hair.
I believe it. I believe it. So let's get this started. So you're currently a program manager, Restore Education. What is that a little bit? If you can give us a little bit of your background.
I got to tell you, it is beautiful. Restore Education is run by two sisters that are also graduates of UTSA. Their father started this school back in the early 80s. And if you're 17 or 70 years old, you can walk through their doors and they will help you get your high school diploma in either English or Spanish, the equivalency of that. They will help you chart the waters to get into college, and training programs, you know, coordinating those activities, and help a lot of students get their resume and cover letter in order, help them with their interviewing skills, first day on the job jitters, get over that. And some of those training programs are 6 weeks and 12 weeks long, but they might be in phlebotomy, admin assistant, but we go from survive to thrive so that they can provide for their family. And it is a blessing I'm there. So nice. I like it.
Yeah. Speaking of surviving and providing for your family, I've been keeping up with listening to the three of the Democrats that, well, they didn't make it, right? Joe Biden's our representative for this election, but I wish I would have listened to them before I voted, and to some shows, and I get to see more of their agenda and stuff. So, I mean, we as voters need to. I think we as voters we're not as informed. We don't know when to go vote. So I'm making it my mission to help voters with property taxes. I know you taught me last year. I went up on Facebook and I did it, you know, just whatever I could. Now I have this program, so I'm sure I can share my screen next time, and you can guide us through that right now. How does your role go into helping the community fight property taxes?
Well, So after leaving UTSA, I went and worked for a little nonprofit that helped neighborhoods. And this whole time I'd been protesting property taxes pretty much by myself in my neighborhood. Maybe a few other people might come along. But really, that got to be San Antonio became my mission field because now I'm responsible for communicating with all these neighborhoods. And really, it doesn't matter if you're a renter or you're a homeowner or a property owner, be it commercial or residential, you're paying property taxes. It's either in your rent or it's embedded in your mortgage, whatever the case might be. And at the end of the day, there are 5 or 6, maybe sometimes 7 taxing entities that wrap into your property tax bill. And those are going to be your area hospital, a school district, your city, your county, flood, emergency, those
Universities.
universities, that's right.
Yeah.
And sure, they all need a portion of the pie. My
Yeah.
philosophy is we only want to give to Caesar what Caesar's due. And I think Caesar asks for too much. So the state of Texas has allowed for this entire time property owners the right to protest the market valuation that is set forth by their county appraisal districts, what the value of their property is. And so protest can sound like a very dirty word, and it shouldn't have to be. And protesting property taxes should not be scary at all. Literally anybody can do it, and everybody should do it. I've learned over the years that I take myself and I ask all my neighbors nearby me to protest too, because if we all protest together, we can lower the market value of the area together.
I need to do
Me
that.
doing it on my own, I become this outlier. Houses in my neighborhood don't turn over too much, but when they do, and that next house is sold for $50,000 or $60,000 more than the rest of us bought it, then guess what? Our market values all went up to match with that house.
Right.
And and so every year I've owned my house, and I'm now going on 14 years, my property taxes have never naturally gone down by the good thoughts that the county is going to offer me. It's always gone up. It can go up the maximum of 10% legally per year per the state ledge. And we need to do what we can to drop the property tax rates. And the only way to do that is to protest.
Right.
Protesting and putting them on notice is an easy thing to do. Typically, the deadline is May 15th of every year. In our county, they extended it to June 29th.
Because of
Unfortunately,
COVID?
they also,
Was that because of COVID?
it was because of COVID. Normally, we would get our property tax notice bill that says your estimated tax bill is going to be blah, blah, blah about spring break. This year, we didn't even get it until June 4th. And then our protest forms had to be in by June 29th. So where we normally had about a 100-day window, we ended up with about a 25-day window, at least here in Bexar County.
Right.
What was it in your county?
I don't know what the window was. I do recollect that I posted that video up, and I had some teachers there at my school, counselors, like, hey, can you help me with this? And they had questions. And luckily, it was me and you had talked. And I kind of guided them through them. I told them, look, I've been doing it for 2-3 years. I have my mentor in San Antonio. She shows me how to do it. You got to go and don't be intimidated. Because I remember the very first time I did it, when you guided me through it, I was so nervous going into that office. I mean, I was like, okay, what am I going to say? How do I negotiate these things? And luckily, I went and we brought it down. And then this year again, it skyrocketed. And of course, I don't know if you ever met some of my Rashad Cover in Austin, my fraternity brother. He's like, yeah, man, what's going on? And some people reached out through messages, and I said, hey, we have to protest our property taxes. And I always explain to people, look, and this is the way I see it. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I say the state of Texas is banking on only about 10% of us protesting.
Oh, if that, yeah.
And if only 10% of us protest, guess what? They're making a lot more money from the rest of us.
Yeah.
And I told them, I was like, to be honest with you, let's say 100% pay. I said, let's say 100% of us pay those taxes and we never protest. Do we really see the money around us being used? And they're like, well, no, not really. I was like, no. In the past 10 years, the taxes keep going up, but everything seems to have very little progress. So to me, it's like you overcharging us. You're just making money. This is my personal opinion is they're using money to, I don't know for what. I really don't know whether they're getting richer or
Back when
what,
the
but I don't see, as me as a resident, I don't see it. For the amount, I don't mind paying taxes,
yeah.
but not for the amount they're charging. But I did get to help some people out, so I don't remember what the deadline was or when we got it, but we did get it back, and I know it was still during school, so it was. I think the deadline was a little bit or around a little bit before spring break, because spring
Okay.
break happened and then COVID happened, so it was a little bit before spring break.
Okay. So the deadline is usually always May 15th. And I know this year, you know, COVID is the excuse for everything, right?
Right? Yeah.
To get by with whatever they want to do. But, Rudy, to be honest with you, I feel the same way. I think we're being taxed out of our homes. I look at the progress of how much my property taxes have gone up since I bought my house, and the valuation has more than doubled. And
Uh
that's
huh.
just too much in 13 years time, right?
Right.
So had I not been protesting this whole time, it might be more than just double. And I
Right.
think
That's
that's
true.
right. I think that's what's happening with a lot of people, and we've got to put the brakes on it. I think the I think what you're doing, Rudy, is really something I want to be comfortable doing myself here, but I get busy doing other stuff, but
Right.
we have to be civically engaged
Yeah.
with our local governments first, because at the end of
Yes.
the day, this is where we live, and this is where it's going to affect us the fastest, the quickest, the hardest. And
Right.
so when we think about the local entities that are taxing us, you know the the county appraisal district office, they're literally just doing their job. They're collecting all the
Right.
budgets from everybody that come in between the school boards, the school districts, the college districts, the hospital, the county, and the city, and they're just putting it all together. They're maxing it out at the highest rate possible, and they say, voila, this is your bill. And if 1 in 5 houses do that, or 1 in 10 houses protest, maybe we're not actually making a dent in it, like you said.
Yeah.
So we need to be making sure that we know who is running for the school board and what they stand for. We need to know who's running the hospital district budget, and how many positions are they really starting, filling, not filling. And if they're not filling a number of positions year over year, then cut the budget. If we
Right.
have this many roads that need to be paved and they're not paved, then cut the budget. And then
Right.
when you start hearing that different entities have these awesome pet projects going on, question it. Does a in San Antonio, I love that we have great parks, but do we really need an overpass for animals for $250 million? Do we really need to imagine the Alamo for $400 million? Well, no. Do we really need a climate adaptation plan for another $800 million? For me, no. Um, that's my stake in the a line in the sand that I want to draw. I want to own my property, and unfortunately, and I say it almost every time I get on a show, and that is we are forever in a tenant landlord relationship as a homeowner or a property owner with these local entities.
I did the
And
math. I ran the math on my taxes, my
yes, sir.
mortgage, and you add my mortgage, you add the taxes, plus the taxes after I finish paying it off, the 30-year loan. And I said, you know what, let me play with it, do the 20 years, I pay it early. I end up paying less over my lifetime if I just rent a home that's about the size of the house I live in right now.
I know.
Like it's not worth owning. I mean, it's nice. Don't get me wrong. I like my house because it's mine. But man, those taxes. You're right. I'm basically renting my whole life. I'm basically renting my whole life. So,
Well,
but I
and
will say, go ahead.
I want to cut you off just a little bit, because I think there is a tendency right now
Hmm.
across America where, on the whole, they don't want us to own property anymore. They want us to actually be tenants. But we know that when we own property, it's the easiest, fastest um, wealth builder for families. And it
Mm,
should be something that you pass down from one generation to the other. And
right.
we don't really have that as a luxury at all if we are tenants our whole life.
Yeah.
So we have to think through that. But I would like to think that I want to pass my house down, and after I expire, and whatever that next person does with it, that's on them. But at least hopefully they have something of a cash cow to use how they need to see fit. But we keep raising rents in San Antonio, for example. The average rent for a two-bedroom apartment is $1,800 to $2,400 a month.
Oh, that's a lot.
You
That's way
know,
too
my
much.
my mortgage with my escrow that included my insurance and my property taxes was like 580 a month. Well, obviously, in that instance, it's better to be a homeowner.
Yeah.
But that's what happens in a large metropolitan city when we do not have enough housing, when we've got tons of people, fleeing and exiting California, because, right? And they're coming here to the
Yeah.
great state of Texas.
Yeah.
And, that's a whole other subject, but
Yeah.
I get fired up. You can see where that's going.
California's coming to Texas. Yeah, my brother actually, he got off the phone with him earlier today. He's in Austin right now trying to look for an apartment. He goes, man, they're expensive. And he told me, he's like, in order to get a decent apartment, I got to pay like $1,500. I was like, that's what I was paying in LA when I lived out there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and he was talking about it, and it's not even like a one bedroom. It's like more like an open concept efficiency. I was like, what? But either way, so let's tell people who are watching, and whoever watches it tomorrow or the next day, what happens when we get our property tax, and what do we do?
Well, first of all, you're going to get this notice that says your notice of estimated property tax value. It says do not pay. And then on the back of it, you should complete the form and mail it into your local county appraisal district. And there's some advice that I always suggest, and that is for every property you own, you fill it out and you ask for the evidence packet. The evidence, the great thing in at least Bexar County, and I assume it's everywhere because it's a Texas right, you are going to get the county appraisal district is comparing your house to other houses nearby that are similar to you. So how do they do that is through some evidence. You have a right to ask for the evidence packet and have it be sent to you. From there, you analyze the data in the evidence packet as well as take pictures of your house, and you literally go and make the argument at both the informal hearing and then the formal hearing. So, for example, I get an evidence packet in and there's 5 houses on it that they'll have a picture and they say it's the same amount of square footage as yours and it's valued higher than yours. And so I can go onto Zillow, type in their address, look it up, and find out all these great things about that house. And I have to ask myself, if I left my house tomorrow, is it turnkey ready to be put up for sale to get the maximum dollars? Well, of course not. I've got a laundry list of things I need to do to my house. And I keep a sample letter that I'm happy to send you so you can send it to everybody else. But it's a letter that if you feel nervous, you could actually read it and just tell the appraiser people, hey, I'm nervous, so I wrote this down. But I run, this is a laundry list, and you change it as you need. So install a new HVAC is $9,000, new flooring, a roof is this much, and just keep a running total of that. Now, if you want to get really smart about it, which is my favorite thing to do, is they can't bring in any more evidence into the conversation other than
whatever they sent you.
That's right.
See,
Otherwise,
the one thing that I was intimidated about before when we would talk about the evidence packet was I didn't know what it was. And I thought I had to come up with a bunch of information. I didn't know that the evidence packet was the evidence they used to appraise my house.
Yeah. So you kind of it's not like a court of law and, but, you're innocent until proven guilty, and they have the preponderance of evidence, right?
I see.
So
basically, when I ask the evidence packet, it's for us to challenge whatever they're using.
Yep. And say, that house isn't compared to mine. That house is in pristine condition, all new windows. They have new AC, new flooring, top of the line cabinetry.
Yeah, because they get it ready for sale, right?
Yeah. Or maybe it sold in the past year.
Yeah.
So we want to make a laundry list of that. And then actually, if I had 35 to $50,000 of everything that has to be done in my house, I would not live in my house. I would live
True.
somewhere else.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You
Of
know, so
course.
when you get into that conversation with them at informal, and you get two of them, except in Austin, Travis County, they don't do the informal anymore. But that informal hearing is where you go before an employee of the appraisal district, and
Uh-huh.
you're literally having a conversation inside of a cubicle.
Yeah, that's what I had the first time.
Yeah. And so they're going to pull up your house on your screen, and they're going to say, and so Rudy, what do you think your house is worth? And I'm like, I don't know, but it's not this. I've got this to fix, this to fix, this to fix. Here are pictures. And I also went and got these estimates. And
Mm.
so they're going to say, okay, well, we can lower it $5,000 or $10,000. And you go, okay. They're like, do you accept it? And you go, no, I think I'm going to go ahead and go to formal. And
Mm.
then that's where everybody's eyes glaze over.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's so intimidating.
So you get to formal, and literally a week later, and it's like testimony. They're gonna log it in. They're gonna call it to order. They're going to videotape it. They're going to record it, and then they're gonna say, and this is the trick I always use. They're gonna say, do you want to go first, or do you want the county to go first? So you have these three appraisal volunteers sitting on this one wall, and they're really being paid like $60 a day plus lunch. I don't know how volunteering that is. And
Yeah.
then the Bear County person's over there, and you go, I want them to go first. And then the Bear County
Mm.
person's always struggling because they're like, well, I don't really know what to say, but here's what they've got. And this is what we said it was worth. And when they were informal, it went from 100,000 to 95,000. So I'm still sticking with 95,000. And then they're going, are you done? They're like, and what do you have to present? And so you show them the pictures again, just like you did a week ago, and
Right.
these estimates. And then the latest thing that they were pulling last year or 2 years ago is, well, we don't do dollar for dollar estimates. And I go, I know that. So I got you three estimates of the exact same project. The foundation repairs are $6,000, $10,000, or $12,000. So do we want to average those, or do we want to go with the higher or the low one?
Yeah.
And so you really kind of have to beat them at their own game. So if you
Yeah.
like that, if there's your personalities to get in there and kind of like, well, then it's a fun opportunity.
Yeah.
Um, it's very intimidating, I think, and this is why I do this for my neighbors for free, is when it's the widowed female
Mm.
who just wants to die peacefully in her home.
Right.
But now she's living on a pension. Her house needs a lot of upgrades or whatever. It's like, oh, honey, you call me and I will drive with you.
Mm.
I will be your friend. I will speak up when I need to speak up, but you're just going to read this letter. And that's what's really important to me, because they're the ones that can't really afford to have their property tax go up $100 to $200 a year, because that's medicine, that's the electricity bill,
Right.
that's whatever.
Yeah,
So
yeah. It's just too much. Look, I have not done the evidence packet, but now, having this conversation with you, now I understand it. I'm gonna ask for it. I'm like, hey, I'll go to the informal, and I'm gonna go ask for the formal. But in the past 2 years, I've done the other one where I take my neighboring homes, I do the math, divided by whatever I have to divide by, and I do that. When do
I do
you do
that too.
that? Is that part
I
of your testimony or your challenge or?
Yes, I do that too. And the greatest thing now is most of these county appraisal districts have all the property online. So you can
Mm.
type in your address online for us, it's bcad.org. So that's Bear County Appraisal District.org.
Yeah.
Go to property search, type in my street address,
Yeah.
hit export. It exports into Excel. I can sort it and cut it a half ways, to
Yeah.
Midland, which way I want, and start looking at it in that regard. I can even dive in, and because it's public information, I can look at everybody's estimated tax bill too, because they're all attached and embedded on the BCAD website by address.
Yeah.
Kind of neat to get to do that. And so then you really get a lot more information. But from what you get from the evidence package, where they show you what the square footage is, what their address is, and then you type it in on Zillow, and then you get to see the pictures that were last used the last time that house was for sale, which they keep up for 2 to 3 years. Then we get to see inside other people's homes.
Yeah.
You know, our appraiser guy, Mike Amasquita, is really one of the nicest people I've ever met. And he'll tell you, look, I don't have to rat out your neighbors. Y'all do it for me. I don't have to find out what's going on in your neighborhood. Y'all do it for me. So your fraternity brother, Nick, will even drone over your neighborhood for you and look at what's going on in other people's backyards.
Yeah.
Because not in every county, where my mom is from in Midland County, you could have a storage shed in your backyard and it was not taxable. It didn't show up on the tax rolls. Here, a portico, a carport, a storage shed, if it's on your property, it's added to your evidence packet. And you don't know that till you see it.
Wow.
That's why I want you to get the evidence packet.
Yeah,
and really, you kind of have to look at it and go, I'm gonna try and read this. I'm gonna try and tackle it. And then of course I have a stack of them from all my neighbors. They're like, Ann, I got my evidence packet. Can you swing by and pick it up? And I go and look it up for them, and I give them some comments, and then we go to town.
So for the listeners watching, or whenever they watch it, some verbiage when we're doing the math on the surrounding neighborhood. What's that? Is there like a rule of law or that they got to be equal in price, or what's that called?
Yeah, it needs to be they call it an equity grid or a sales grid report. And so
all houses have to be equal by square footage, pretty much.
Pretty much, give or take. I mean, and it's funny. I protest every year, and for like 3 or 4 years, the 100 houses they compared me that were compared to my house were in about a 2-block radius, which is pretty good. Then for a series of years, it was over 5 or 6 streets. And I live in a pretty big neighborhood of about 4,000 homes. Last year, they were only on my street. And it's funny, I get these evidence packages every year, and they pull the carpet up from underneath me, right? And they change the rules and decide which houses they're gonna are gonna be my comps for the year this year versus last year. And then last year, I got that evidence. I got my notice in March, and I said, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna highlight my evidence packet from last year for the past 2 years, which houses in my neighborhood keep showing up and are higher than my house. And so that was my strategy. Whether it was good or bad, I don't know, but it's kind of cool. So I photocopied my evidence packages because it's all public information. And it was about 6 pages plus a cover letter to all my neighbors. And I sat at Starbucks one day and I addressed everyone and put stamps on them, delivered them. And my letter went something like this: Dear neighbor, here your house shows up in my evidence packet. Here it is highlighted. I protest my property taxes every year. Will you protest yours too? If we do it together, we can keep the values low in our neighborhood. Please help us help each other. Call me if you have any questions. I'll help. Your neighbor, Ann.
Yeah.
Sent that out to 66 households. Heard from about 18. 12 before the deadline. 8 after the deadline. So 12 said, yes, let's protest, Ann. That's a great idea. Yeah. 8 called me the day after it was over and said, I shoulda, woulda, coulda. Well, get it next time, right? And now we've got COVID. But just 5 years ago, only 88,000 houses, or only 88,000 properties out of 632,000 properties in Bexar County protested. Last year, 117,000 out of 632,000 homes protested last year.
They are getting away with a bunch of money.
Yes. And we need to do our part in protest.
And I'm sure that's everywhere because people don't protest.
Well, and and if you don't ask, you're not going to get a deal, right? It's no different than shopping for insurance. If you don't ask, can you get me a better rate? They're not going to get you a better rate. And then a lot of people, I got to be honest with you, Rudy. Here's another little squirrely thing that I've learned over this doing this. A lot of people don't get their property tax bill. Why? Because the property tax is wrapped up in their mortgage bill.
Yeah.
So the mortgage company will get their property tax bill or their notice, unless if it's specifically requested that you have it sent to them.
That happened to us. And that's why I did it, because that happened to me from being a new homeowner. That happened to me where we owed all of a sudden my mortgage went up like $600. We're like, well, $600, what's going on here? Because that first year they didn't send it to us, and then the mortgage, and they're trying to, both entities were like, well, it's not our fault. We sent it to them, and it's like, well, it's not our fault. They should have sent it to you. I'm like, yeah, I don't care whose fault it was. I'm the one stuck paying your communication. So, you know, and I'm not the first. You know, I talked to some of the colleagues that I have, and they're like, same thing happened to me, man. You know, whatever. You know, we're still trying to fix that.
So, I guess the thing is we've got to be forearmed. And that's why I appreciate you letting me come on today, Rudy, because here is another opportunity where we need to be empowering ourselves to be responsible for how we spend our money.
For sure. For sure.
You know,
we the people. We the people. And I think, and one thing I like about social media and, you know, my podcast, and I'm sure around the nation, I think we're communicating a lot better, and we're informing people, and we can put a little bit more pressure on elected officials, because, well, if you don't represent us, well, we need to vote for someone else, and that's I stand by it. For example, I already looked at my state reps, and I said, and one of and that's why I want to talk about what's going. Let's talk about that before I make my comment. Is what's going on? Why our taxes keep going up? Why are they not? Are we not being represented in the state in Austin, or what? What's going on there?
No, I don't really know what goes on in Austin. I can tell you that we are not there enough in Bexar County, and that includes many municipalities, not just San Antonio, the city of San Antonio. We have lots of cities inside Bexar County. They all have paid lobbyists where they are in Austin and in front of our elected officials every day, literally working against the people in that regard. You know, they're all fighting for the almighty dollar, however it comes, hook or crook, we need it. And that's where we really have to say, look, I need to know what's in that city budget, the county budget, the hospital budget, and the school budget. Isn't it bloated? Can we cut it? Are there, you know, just like the big federal budget, do you have a bunch of junk hidden in there that doesn't really need to be in there? Are you snowing us? You know, if it's the fleecing of America, then it's the fleecing of Mendezville. If it's the fleecing of America budget-wise, it's the fleecing of San Antonians, right? We have got to be asking questions and follow the money. And if they're spending tax dollar money to use against us by sending somebody to Austin every day to work against the people, we should have a problem with that. A couple of years ago, legislation meets in the odd years, so we won't be back until 2021. But when I took my little job at that neighborhood group, that was kind of like my baby. I decided, you know, wouldn't it be great if I took some property owners, some true homeowners, and said, we are going to go meet with all the elected officials that represent us in Austin. So starting in October, I planned a whole day to be that next March. And I worked with our elected official staff people, and we went in front of all of them. We spent 10 or 15 minutes. I took a busload of about 13 or 18 of us. We broke into different groups. We spent the whole day up there. We met with them on a scheduled time, and we had a one-sheeter in there saying, we need to lower property taxes. We need to eliminate property tax. We need to reduce bloated government spending, and we're asking you to fix it. And, you know, just letting them know that we were there means a lot. Not communicating with our elected officials means we agree with what they are doing. If they don't hear from us, they're going to keep doing what they're doing. If you pick up the phone, that's equal to about 500 people saying the exact same thing. If you ask for a meeting and you actually go to the meeting in town, that's literally representing 1,000 people. You
Yeah.
write a letter, that's like 2,000 people. You show up in Austin at their offices with a letter in hand saying, I do not agree with what you're doing. We need relief. We're asking for property tax relief, reform quickly. We're asking for your help. That's like hearing from 10,000 constituents at once.
Yeah.
So taking 18 people on the bus on one day is like me taking 18,000 people with me that day. And
Yeah.
it felt good. We met with the governor's office. We met with Betancourt, who does not represent us here, but he is an advocate of eliminating and reforming property tax.
Hmm.
We met with Glenn Hager's office. They're ready to meet with us again. He is the Texas State Comptroller who oversees all property tax code here in the state of Texas. And so we've got to be in front of our elected officials. They have to know when they do a great job. They need to know when we need them to make change, and they need to know when they're not doing a good job. And it needs to be more than just griping about it. And
Right.
then we need to vote,
We vote.
right?
I think at the end of the day, it comes down to the vote. To me personally, okay. So let me ask you a few questions because this is my personal stance.
Yes, sir.
If our I know one of our state reps and where, not my state rep and where I live, but a neighboring state rep, where in my school district, he just got reelected, and he's a buddy of mine. I went to school with him. He was a seventh
Okay.
grader, I was an eighth grader, right? So I know him. Actually, he even called me one time because I put something on Facebook, and some people, he must have got word I had the wrong guy, and he goes, hey, he called, hey Rudy, what's going on? And I said, hey, what do we do about property taxes? And he went on this explanation, but then I made some phone calls to some other sources. And
Okay.
here's what I was told by some other sources. He goes, you have to understand, Rudy, that I think that they figured it out. He goes, he goes, instead of them asking for, what do they call the props or to like, man,
Proposition.
like propositions to like make a new road or asking for a bond or whatever it is, asking for millions of dollars.
Yeah.
All they did was because he goes, most of the time when you put that in up for election, they always get declined. So what they figured out was stop asking for those things and just charge it on the property tax.
Yeah.
Just increase the property tax. And he goes, that's the loophole. That's what people don't know.
Yep.
That's what they're doing. Because people, if you give them, if it's up to a vote, they're going to say no. But when it's in their property tax and they have no choice, they're going to pay it. Especially with the fact that a lot of people don't protest their taxes. My question with that said, with that information that was told to me, now, and one of my main concerns is, who do we vote for or who's in charge? Because I've also been told, well, your state reps, the people see when I hear state rep is we vote for you to represent us, the people in Austin, and we don't want to pay. We don't want property. I mean, not that we don't want it, but we don't want you to raise our taxes every single year, right? So you just mentioned the comptroller. What was that name again?
Glenn Hager.
And he's in charge of what's he in charge of again?
Well, he is the head comptroller for the state of Texas. So he does a lot of things, but one of the things he does is he runs the Texas Property Code, the code itself, which is about 200 to 300 pages. It has all the rules, 2-column, 8-point font. Yeah,
right.
Lots of law in there. Yeah. There's a Facebook group I belong to. I don't always agree with them, but they're Eliminate Property Tax.
I'm in there.
And I asked you to join a couple of years. I was like member number 50. They now have over 6,000 members, and they're starting to rattle some cages. They are getting bolder. They're getting stronger, and I really appreciate the idea that they want to go all the way to eliminate property tax and replace it with consumption tax, of which when you're in a healthy economy, it works. But let's just say right now we're not in a healthy economy. In San Antonio, we're looking at probably a $22 million loss of revenue since the COVID is whipping through us right now, and that's being felt. But with that, then budgets need to be the belts need to get tightened on all government entities. You
Right.
can't keep putting it on the property owner, and ultimately it's on the residential homeowner who probably only owns one property. For example, we know who all the large businesses are in our cities that we work in, and it's fair that they get to do this. They have entire law firms or a law department that when their property tax bills come in for all the property they own, where they run their businesses for grocery stores, banks, their shop number one, shop number two, shop number three, and all their franchises, they literally take all those bills and they just go, here, lawyer, protest it. And then they say, nope, make it go to lawsuit. So imagine when a lot of those commercial properties come in, or people who have big bucks, they can just turn it straight over to a lawyer, tie it up in a lawsuit for 2 to 3 years, and eventually end up almost doing a plea bargain agreement and paying 30 cents on the dollar versus we never got the tax break, right?
Yeah.
So
So
there's
that's not
something to be
cool.
said for what where the brunt of the property taxes are being paid for, and it's by the little people, right? And then
Yeah.
I think about people that live in some of the most impoverished neighborhoods here in San Antonio. That house is the only thing they've got. So when a developer whips through their neighborhood and says, I'll give you $20,000 for that property, and they don't realize that they should be selling that property to a developer for about $150,000, right? Then they're getting snowed and nobody's doing the right thing. I want people to do the right thing. I want people to tighten up their budgets. I want those budgets to be transparent. And then I want to have access to it and be able to ask the questions, what is this dollar going for? What is this $1 million going for?
Yeah.
How much in tax abatements are you giving to developers, to other incentives, other rebates, whatever other concessions you're giving? How much is that in value? And how is that impacting me and my neighbors? Because every time my bill goes up an extra $20, that meant somebody's went down probably 200 because they're getting some deal on the
Right.
side. And so,
Kind of like the corporations in America don't get taxed.
yeah, I think they probably pay their fair share, but yeah. And
Hey,
and I want capitalism to rule, and I want
yeah, for sure.
the American dream, all that. Yeah.
Yeah. The American dream gets a little bit harder when you have to be paying so many taxes for property, so high, I
Yeah.
think. Can
And
you
you think
explain?
about it, you pay taxes everywhere, right? On everything. If you
Yeah.
if you've opened up your cellular phone bill lately, and then your electric bill, and then your water bill, just look at all those other
Yeah,
surcharges,
I saw
fees,
all those
tax.
charges that you and Nicholas Monroe talked about so- in his
Nick
podcast.
gave me
There's
a
a lot.
headache reading those.
Man, those are a lot of taxes. Those are a lot of taxes. Can you explain to the public I think you mentioned that there's a state where you just pay the one tax and that's it?
Yeah, so a lot of my cousins moved to Arkansas, and they're in Fayetteville. My one of my youngest cousins played baseball and now is a professor up there, and so his mother followed him up, his sisters followed him up, his nieces are going to school there. It's kind of cool, and so I get to go
Nice.
up there and spend a week here and there. And they
Yeah.
said, oh yeah, you buy property here once, and you pay taxes on the day that you buy it. You don't pay property tax again. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's beautiful. And he's like, until you go buy a cup of coffee, and we're paying, a much higher percentage. And he goes, but it's consumption tax, and now it's fair and equitable across the board. Now, some people are going to argue that it's not, but then I look at it and I'm like, well, probably me and my best friend drives a Tesla.
Right.
I drive a Beetle, and we drive the same roads. He chose to buy an $80,000 car. He paid taxes on 80,000. I bought a used Beetle for under 10 grand, and I paid taxes on the 10 grand.
Yeah.
Fair, fair.
And I think that's fair because The people that have more money are going to buy a little bit more expensive things, get taxed on that. And if you don't have that much money, you can't afford stuff like that. I'm sure if I got taxed like the way in that situation, I probably wouldn't be driving my Ford Platinum. I probably have a basic Ford F-150. But
Yeah.
and those are choices you make. Um, I know. I mean, me and my wife, we kind of built a decent sized home, and of course, we have to pay a little bit more than usual. But but like you say, I wouldn't mind paying that one tax and just charge me for my way
Well,
my
and
practice.
isn't it funny? For the most part, we only pay tax once on that thing we buy, right? If
Yeah.
I go and buy a car right now, I'm going to pay tax on it once. That's probably my
Mhm.
second most expensive thing I'm ever going to buy. The house being the more expensive one. But if I got new furniture in my house, I only pay tax on it once. It's not they come back and they ding me for the value of the house or for the couch every year. And
Right.
and interestingly enough, for some reason, they guarantee us when we get that property notice that the value of our structure and the value of the land went up, right? How? How
Yeah.
did you arbitrarily decide this on January 1 that all of this went up 40
By a
and fifty
bunch.
thousand dollars?
By a
Yeah.
bunch. Like somewhere 15,000, somewhere 20,000. I know my first year was like ridiculous 18,000, and I brought it down. And then this past year again, it was like 12,000. I'm like, what? So I brought it down. But now I'm gonna start using the evidence packet, and hopefully I can bring it even more. And
Yeah.
I
And
think
I
and I
think
think go ahead.
I agree with you. And I think the other thing to know is don't miss your informal hearing. So, in simple math, if you have a $200,000 home and you do nothing, you're going to pay property taxes on 200,000 because that's what they said. And next year it's going to go up at the maximum percent. So, you start your house at 200,000, you go to your first meeting at informal and you drop it 10,000, and that's $190,000. And then they go, do you agree with that? And you're like, I think I need to go talk to my husband and
Right.
see what he says. I can't make this decision on my own. And then you go, no, I'm going to go ahead and go to formal. So
Hmm.
you go to formal. Well, instead of starting at 200,000, you're going to start at 190,000.
Yeah.
They can't go above 190,000. So you've already won $10,000. Let's
Hmm.
go win some more, right?
Yeah.
And now
Yeah.
let's pull out some more evidence. Let's pull out 3 estimates. Let's make them do dollar for dollar. Let's show the pictures of cracks and foundation issues, broken tile, um, opening up our air conditioning unit, taking a picture of the manufacturing serial number because
Yeah.
that has the manufacturing date on it. So it clearly
Oh,
says what year it is. Do that with
right.
your hot water heater. Do that with your refrigerator. This is not the day you need to go tidy up your house. Let them see that, all the cabinets are open and the dishes are out, and, it is what it is. They
Yeah.
don't really care about chipped paint, right? They don't
Yeah.
care that you really only need a fresh coat of paint on a house. They want to know what's on the inside, and
Yeah.
so you show them the bad stuff.
Yeah. It's interesting you say, and I guess for the people that are afraid of protesting, option one, the example you gave me right now is option one, let's say 200,000, and you don't protest for 5 years. Un más o menos, what would it be after 5 years of non-protesting?
50% more, easily.
So that's what I'm not,
300,
five,
maybe
man.
75 to 100,000 more.
So
Because you have
let's
to figure
say,
they're going to go up 8 to 10% every year,
oh, okay, I see what you're
right?
saying. So 20,000, 40,000,
And then
60,000,
remember, when you get in
yeah,
there, they may lower the value of your structure, but your land is creeping up, and they're not
yeah.
lowering the value of your land.
So
And I
let's
would love.
say, yeah. So let's say that after 5 years of non-protesting, you might be at, let's lowball it, 280,000. Now,
Yeah,
the option with protesting every year, you bring it down, so you pretty much can end up at what, 200,000 where you started.
yeah, from 5 years ago, yeah.
Yeah. So man, so if someone doesn't protest for 5 years, they're pretty much losing out on $80,000, kind of,
Yeah.
sort of.
Well, and it's 80. So
Well, the taxes, the tax on
the
it, the
the
percentages.
valuation. It's the
Right.
valuation.
The valuation, yeah.
So, my partner in my nonprofit firm, A Plus True Tax, um, like saying take your 200,000 and multiplying it by 3%, and that way you can get an estimate on what your bill is going to be. So it's
Mm.
3% of $200,000. So
Ah, okay.
now
So you
the
actually, what you're gonna have to
valuation's
pay
going
in
up.
taxes.
Yeah. So that, and it's like, how do we lower that? The other thing that he was going to tell you is before you turn 65, and some property taxes freeze, not all, but that couple of years before you turn 65, you need to go in there and fight hard to really
Mm.
lower it as much as you can. Because once you get it frozen for what you can freeze, you can sit pretty. My next door neighbor, he's had his property taxes frozen now, maybe I think he froze them the year I moved in, so almost 15 years, and he
Wow.
pays like $112 a year. And then, of course,
Nice.
Rudy, we haven't mentioned it, but I forgot to say, make sure you have all your exemptions. You know, you've got a
Oh yeah.
homestead exemption, you can have a disabled vet exemption, a surviving spouse over 65, right?
Yeah. See, when I went through my neighborhood, I have a bunch of my neighbors that don't have their homestead exemption.
Well, and you know that happens for people that have not been told, right? Straight up, they haven't been told, but
Right.
they don't want to fight the system. They don't want to ask any questions. And some of them have owned their house 10 or 15 years and have never gotten an exemption before.
Man,
And then some
that's
are
a
those
shame.
first time homeowners that
Yeah.
didn't know, oh my gosh, that even exists. I need to go look and see if I have one. The
Yeah.
counties have a right to go back 2 years and they can credit you back.
Yeah,
So
we
you want to
got
do
that.
that.
Yeah, we got
Okay,
that.
good.
That was pretty cool.
Um,
So,
the other thing that my partner Mike Berlinga is really good at, and this is his specialty, is he helps people protest their commercial property. So,
mm,
commercial property, you have all the rights, whether you own the property or you rent. Like on a strip mall, you might rent a property in a
right.
strip mall and
Yeah.
you're on a triple net lease. You have the right to protest as the lessee. How
Mm,
awesome is that?
that is
So
pretty
he
neat.
helps a lot of people do that as well. Um, I would be remiss if I didn't tell y'all that, and because I love small businesses, a lot of small businesses don't realize that they should be protesting their taxes too, and even if they don't own the building, do it anyway because it's your
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And we're lucky that the state of Texas is helpful for protecting businesses on that.
That's pretty cool. I'm glad that's information that we need to know. I'm gonna have to
and
tell
and I wish I was a
Flout.
pro at that. I cannot wait to become licensed to really talk more about property taxes and help people, full time in about 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, hey, and keep me posted because my goal is to make sure that the residents here in the Rio Grande Valley, here in Precinct 3, that we're informed and we got to make sure that we are the voters and we need people to whoever we elect, they need to step up for us. So I know. So who steps up for us? Who? If I were to ask someone in Austin, who's the person that says, you know what, we're going to decide to eliminate property tax and do the sales tax, or you know what, we're going to freeze it. We're not going to increase it. It's going to be a lot more suitable for the residents. Who is that person? Who are they? Who does that?
Well, I think they're gonna do, whoever you talk to, they're gonna blame another entity. School district's gonna blame the city's gonna blame the county's gonna blame the state's gonna blame the school district, and then it just ends up being a shell game. Uh, they can bring all those people together and they can say, look, we need to cut this down. We've heard from 500,000 Texans and they're demanding property tax reform and relief, and they want it now. We asked for it last year, and we thought one House bill was going to happen. But you need to know the platform of your state representatives and what they stand for. And it's very easy to get caught up in we need it for the children. We've got to do this for schools. And I'm an educator. You're an educator. I feel I got a great education, but I don't know if I needed every tricked out athletic field. every special high-end whatever. We've got,
like a nice water park. How do you like our water park?
yeah, I kind of flipped out on you that day. I apologize in advance on that. I didn't
Tell
think
you
you were gonna
what,
forget.
let's do this. Can you tell the public what went through your mind when you saw our water park?
Well, first of all, it was a string of cuss words that I'm not allowed to say on your.
Oh, you can say them. I'm not saying them. I'm not. Hey, I wipe my hands. I just want to know you as a person, up for the voters, the taxes. What was your mindset when you saw the nice water park that we have and the golf course and all that? Because it's nice. I like it. It's nice.
I literally flipped out, and your water park isn't the only one. There's a lot of beautiful high school football stadiums that put a lot of college facilities to shame.
Yeah,
No one,
yeah. I've seen some of them.
yeah.
I've seen some
And
of those.
my first question was, is this water park opened every day? Are they putting high school students in positions to work there, to learn skill sets, to go out into the workforce and be ready for jobs? Is it not manned every day? And then literally what really flashed before my eyes is what the hell? Because I'm like, how did this happen? How did this get passed? How did this get made? Why are we doing this? How is this helping educate students? Is it a moneymaker for them? Because if it's a moneymaker for them, then you did not need our money to pay for it. And if you're making money off of it, then pay the taxpayers back.
Mm.
So we have a whole bunch of swimming pools here in San Antonio at a lot of parks. For the past 3 years, they used to be open about 100 days in the summertime. Then it was 90. Last year, it was only open 60 days. The rest of the time, the swimming pools are drained and they're not opened. That's horrible. So now we've got 2 million people in this city, all these swimming holes, and we can't get in them. Right? So, I don't know. Then cut the budget, concrete it in. I don't know. They're going to open up. I sound terrible. I know.
No, and I don't
want a
think you
smaller
sound.
government.
No, it's not a bad thing because I'm sure you're not the only person that feels like that. Because you know who also sent me some messages. Rashad. I don't know if you remember Rashad Cover, one of our fraternity brothers. He
Oh,
came
yeah.
in. You remember Shad? And I mean, he was just sending me messages after messages. And I said, hey, you know what? Hey, it's nice. It looks nice. We have the golf course. We have a nice golf course. We have a nice the swimming pool. We have a nice planetarium, some tennis courts. So, I mean, from that perspective, it's pretty cool, right? And of course,
It
your
is.
perspective and a lot of other people are like, as taxpayers, I can see your perspective, and I respect your point of view. No doubt about that. I had nothing to do with it. I just know all I can say is it looks pretty cool. That's it.
It does look pretty cool. So how many times have you been to it? And are you getting your money's worth out of it as a taxpayer?
Me personally, I've been to the golf course once.
And the swimming hole,
Never.
the lazy river.
Never. Do we have I don't even know if there is a lazy river.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So,
I've never been. But I do know some people that do go.
and I want this higher quality of life for us, and I want us to have these experiences, but I don't know. I mean, can we really maintain that? We own a lot of city golf courses in town. You have to have there's a science to running grass on a golf course, right? People go to college to learn that skill set.
Hey, it's hard. It's
right?
hard.
It is.
I'm struggling
It's
with my
tough.
backyard to make it look like a golf course. It's tough. It's not easy.
It's tough. And I want that golf course used every day then, right? Unless if it's rainy or the ground's thawing, I want it used maximum. So do we have too many? I don't know. But in San Antonio, you can swim essentially from spring break to Thanksgiving. So why are the swimming pools not usually open outside of the year of COVID? Why are those
Right.
swimming pools not opened between March 1 to Thanksgiving weekend, whatever
Yeah.
the temperature is, let it be. And let's get some people employed. Let's get them getting some skill sets. Let's help them build a resume. But having the swimming pool only open 60 days, who's going to take that job? Right?
No.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Just
that's
some high school kid.
you're and you have to have a lifeguard license in order to, work at a swimming pool. So, if you've gotten that license, you really want to go use it. You're going to be at Six Flags and SeaWorld and other
Oh
places. You're
yeah.
not going to
Yeah,
be
for sure.
there, right?
Absolutely.
Because they're open for a longer season, and when it gets cold and you're not running the swimming pool, they can put you in another part of the park. So I just want to be very thoughtful about what we do with our money and how the money is spent, and support our governments and our elected officials when they do great things and when they do good things. Because at the end of the day, most of them have a very thankless job. I am not always kind to my own electeds, because I call them out when I think they're wrong, and I call them out when they placate me and they give me answers that I don't like. In my neighborhood, we fight homelessness and vagrancy and loitering, burglaries and of cars and houses every day. And I think I pay enough taxes that I should have a lot of patrolling done by a police force, but by
Absolutely.
golly, there's not enough of them. Well,
Yeah.
why do we not have enough of them? At the end of the day, the city is responsible for providing safety and infrastructure. Then I don't want a pothole. Fix it. I want lights to be synchronized so I can save time as I zip across town. So um, I don't want a bunch of pet projects. And when they put a bond forth that's $200 million and $400 million, and
Oh
they bark at us about
man.
um,
I don't know about all
we're going to
that.
pay this debt at $200,000 a month. Maybe we should save up $200 million and not pay $200,000 a month in debt.
Yeah. No,
But
and
we need
I
to
think
ask questions.
what's interesting what's interesting about those comments you're making is there's some local city elections coming up,
Yeah.
and ever since I started going live with the commissioner's race about a year ago or 6 months or whatever it was,
Uh-huh.
um, there's been some sources that would reach out to me from both sides, you know,
Okay.
and I guess the goal was to try to for me to inform the public as objectively as I could. Um,
Absolutely.
but the city elections that are coming up, there's a lot of information that I have not shared. I don't know if I'm going to share it or not. Uh, we'll see. We'll see. But like you said, the one thing that interests me, that I'm interested in, is what you just said is you get this loan or this bond, but then you have to pay the interest or you're paying back, and that falls on the taxes and the residents and the progress. I mean, of course, San Antonio and Bexar County is a lot bigger than the little neighboring cities we have here, but it's pretty interesting when you talk about finances and being transparent and what are you using the dollars for. And my personal goal is not to attack the elected officials, because I know, like you said, it's got to be hard. But at the same time, we elected you, we trust you with the money that we give the city. So because now it's like we're hiring you to show me what you're doing with the money. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But
Well, and we have to remember that when they always say that the government's providing this for us or the city's doing this for us, no, we're doing it, right? It's our money,
yeah,
right? So we really have to question that. I like the opportunity. I want to vote as many times as you're going to let me, because there's not much that I have to do to be a good citizen. And I have a right to vote. And when I'm denied the right to have inputs on a true budget, not
yeah,
what you concocted, and you're only going to let me rank these 8 or 9 areas,
yeah,
um, that's not really engaging me. I really want to be a part of that. And I want other people to do that with me. But we get busy, Rudy. I mean, uh, most people are raising their children the best they can. They want them to have these wonderful experiences. We want them to get a good education. I don't know if they have to get it in the Taj Mahal. I think they can get it, somewhere a little less than that. Um, I don't know if they have to have all the bells and whistles, but I think it's very critical that what we do is make sure that we're asking the right questions and we're saying you don't have to give us all of these other things and have just put a bunch of shiny ornaments on stuff without shedding away some programs that don't work anymore and get rid of some things that are outdated. And when people say, well, the city's doing this and the city's doing that, and I'm like, did they ask us, or are they just doing it behind our back, or is it just another pet project that once you start following the money, then you find out who's really controlling whom? So
Yeah, and that's one thing I've learned over the course of my time. I mean, I didn't know any of this, but when I started, the politics and the sources, it comes down to helping people pay for my campaign.
yeah. Well, and I
That's
can tell you, Rudy, it speaks volumes of your integrity and how much impact and um, tentacles that you have out in your community if people from both sides are calling you. And so you you have a very big responsibility. And with that comes a lot of credibility and integrity that you never want to break. So you got to keep fighting the good fight and then let
man.
them.
I'll tell you what though. Sometimes I stress over this show. I'm like, man, should I even be talking about politics anymore? It's more of let me just stick to the sports. But no, it's at the end of the day, it's just share information with the voter. That's it. That's my number one goal. Share information with the voter. What were the facts? What was the history? Whatever you want to vote, that I can control. But I can
Exactly.
control what the information is, and that's it. So I'm glad you came on. I thank you so much for the information on the property taxes. Hopefully people watch it. Hopefully they ask me questions, and I can guide them on the conversation we had tonight.
I love it. Thanks for having me, Rudy.
Thank you so much, Englert. Have a good night.